Hello everybody. Time for another neighborhood update. It's been a very hectic weekend and a very hectic few weeks. This message, of course, is for the Shorecliff neighborhood group, the LSFSA neighborhood unified group, as well as will be on my personal account and on Ryan Murphy's Town of Greece Uncovered. If you have not joined that group, you may want to. There's some valuable information there for all Greece residents. So the last things you may have seen are we had a surprise public hearing at 10 o'clock in the morning. Not sure how you guys feel about that, but in order to go to it, if you wanted to speak, you had to take off from work. Maybe you might want to voice your concerns about that to your ward council member and see if they can throw them back to town board meetings where you can come in at 6 p.m. and address your concerns. I know that meeting specifically was for a Greece property on Island Cottage that's going to be proposed to be sold to Munipro. There are 3 more of those Greece properties that will be sold to Munipro. I don't know yet when their public hearings will be. So, this weekend was the Greece Gauntlet Mud Run, sponsored by the Greece Central School District. Ryan and I recently went and spoke at the board meeting and warned them, of course, of the contamination that the DEC has now officially found on the south side of the parkway. Basically, my neighborhood's side of the parkway. Ryan had made a comment to Mr. McCabe, the president, that it would be negligent on the school's part not to look into this and not to address it before the track team went through it. Mr. McCabe seemed to warp Ryan's words and then go off on him saying, "Don't call us negligent, you don't know what we're doing." Well, within a few days of that, we found out what they were doing. Charging participants $35 each to do a hack job at a Tough Mudder. And where did they go out to do this? Well, the 5K was right in that contamination zone. And what's worse, our testing site 5 and 6, where we tested and found TCE, they dug a bigger pit filled with mud and crud and whatever came up in it, so people could directly run right through it. I guess that's negligent. There's no way to look at it. That's negligent. This coming Thursday is the next town board meeting. It's at 6 p.m. We don't know if the town is going to put it on the agenda now to try and transfer that property from Greece to Munipro. I am sure there are people out there who would have liked to voice their concerns, but either didn't know about the meeting or couldn't attend and get time off from work for a 10 o'clock in the morning meeting. Maybe you'll want to come out to that meeting this coming Thursday. Maybe you'll want to tell your friends. your neighbors who don't have Facebook, who won't get this message. I think this message is important enough that we're going to create a YouTube link for it as well. And where this is posted, we'll put that on there so that way you can get the message out and around. I had a lot more to say, but for this weekend, aside from yesterday going out and warning the runners that they would, well, warning them to stay out of the puddles because there's toxic waste in it, between yesterday and today, my wife Casey has been making a video presentation, basically of what we have found back here and how it relates together, as well as the flood zones that can show you where the chemicals from Odenbach are flowing across existing waterways and ruts that are already there. Now I'm going to warn you, it might be a little dry, but if you really, really, really want to understand what's going on here and what we're up against and what the evidence is, because not only do we have the maps that we've looked at and what Casey is about to present to you, we've read through those 1,000-page documents by the DEC, by the contracted groups who are remediating from the DEC, and from the Army Corps of Engineers. You're looking at 30 plus years worth of documentation. And you're going to hear this from Casey too. Those tests that they took on our side recently, the DEC, what Greece is using to say, well, that's evidence that there's no contamination over there. Well, tonight we're going to try to disprove that. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be more coming after this. But those DEC tests on our side were taken at depths of 5 to 10 feet. On the north side, they were taken at 15 to 20 feet. Sound a little suspicious? Rush job? Didn't want to do it? Don't want to see what's over here? Or maybe it was just a beginning. The DEC won't give us a straight answer if they're going to do any more over here. But with what we're about to show you, with this evidence that's going to be in people's hands, they are going to have to. They are also going to have to test our neighborhood. Because what we're going to present tonight is pretty damning. I'm going to stop going on. It is 11:53 at night, so I still have a last chance to say this. Happy Father's Day. I had a chance to reach out to my dad today, and Casey had a chance to reach out to hers. My mother is no longer alive. I understand many of you out there may have fathers that are no longer alive. For those of you who still have parents, reach out to them. Tell them you love them. Give them a hug. You never know how much longer they'll be around. And now on to Casey's. I'll see you guys soon.
Okay, so I guess I will start with a little bit of history for those of you who are not familiar with what is going on here. So this is the town of Greece. This is the Odenbach Shipyard, also known as former Air Force Plant 51. It is a New York DEC Superfund site because, as with most Superfund sites that were from the military, all of the ground in here is full of solvents and epoxies and heavy metals and all kinds of really awful things that you don't want to dig up. They've been working on this site for about 35 years now. And after it was no longer building ships or building bombers for World War II, they did other stuff there like chrome plating. So pretty yucky there. Interestingly enough, this is where our drinking water comes from, right next door. Isn't that great? That's great. So, why? So, almost 7 months ago now, or 7 months ago, what is time at this point? In November, it came to our attention that they wanted to build a 4-story building right about in here. Now, I live over in here, and I was like, that doesn't sound good or right. I go out walking back here, and it's swampy, to say the least. Also, as you can see right about here, that's drainage. That is drainage for probably everything out here at least. I know my neighborhood, that's drainage ditch that comes out over there. Not a real easy place to build things. Plus, like this guy Steve, he rehabs horses. He's got a horse farm here, and they're building that directly in his backyard. And they didn't tell him they were rezoning his property either, so that also really gross. The biggest contaminant of concern over at Odenbach is a chemical called trichloroethylene, and that is an industrial degreaser. Also, at one point, was the main component of oven cleaner. But it's really nasty stuff, and it gives you cancer. And it can vaporize up from the soil into your basement. Nobody wants that. And my concern is, after reading a bunch of papers, that from over here has made its way over here. Now, I brought this up at planning board meetings, and they said, no, it's not, and provided zero proof. So, I read something upwards of thousands, tens of thousands of pages of reports from the site because, wow, both the DEC and the military, I gotta say, their reports, fantastic. So much information, so much detail. Thank you. So I guess the funniest part about this is, yeah, the concern now is that this stuff is coming at our houses. It's started from looking to see why they're building a 4-story building over here that is taller than anything possibly in the entire freaking town. Town is okay. Town is here. Yeah. I mean, outside of Kodak, which is like over here, it'll be the tallest building. And in looking at reasons that I can tell them that that's a stupid idea, I realized, oh shit, we're right here. Our neighborhood is this far from Odenbach. I actually thought there was a whole other giant rural block in between myself and this. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have bought my house. Hindsight. So I noticed a bunch of things when looking at that. So we'll start with the timeline here first. Go back to when the building was still standing. And what you're going to want to look at is this area here. This area where contamination is flowing over into, and I will in a bit show you how that is happening, considering we are in an area where water tends to flow north. Look here, it's normal looking. I'm pretty sure that this triangle here is probably from when they built the Ontario State Parkway. I think they used that as a staging area and probably a dump. There's a lot of chunks of concrete and stuff over there. Definitely not natural soil arrangement. So who knows what the geology actually is over there. And as time goes by, you start to see like, are those dead trees in there? Maybe not. This is July 2015. September 2017. Now, yeah, some trees have turned, but looks like a bit much in that one spot right there. It's a bit many trees. And we get to June of 2018, like, oh, they didn't come back. They're pretty dead. July. Definitely should be green. September 2019. And June 2021. The hell is going on there? June 2023. Looks even more dead. Not the best angle. Look how dead that is. It's so dead. And you see it spreading. You can see those dead trees. You see more stuff dying over here. You see more stuff dying on the other side of the creek. Basically following the creek. Here. Dead. And you get to, well, the most recent they have on here. And there's just some strange water patterns. And I've walked all through back here, and yeah. We even took our own tests. And we found stuff. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you some maps. The spot right here is where we sent a water sample from surface water to a lab, and it came back positive for TCE at 2 micrograms per liter, which is the New York State reporting level for water. It is not the safety limit, which is 5, but it was in surface water. Now, what TCE does is as soon as it gets up there, being in the sunlight, exposed to air, it's going to evaporate pretty quick. Not super, super quick, but pretty quick. And this water that I got the sample from was just pouring out of the ground like someone left a hose on. And the direction it was pointing was south. It was pointing that way. have up here the apartments they want to build. Once you disturb the ground somewhere where the groundwater is contaminated with TCE, it starts to get into the air, and that's when it makes people sick. It gets into the soil, it gets mixed into the soil, and from when it's mixed into the soil, that's when you get soil vapor, which can go up through basements. This is a LiDAR map of the area, so we can see the contours of the ground. Now, Unbach had a septic that drained back here and dumped all of who knows what back here for years and years and years. And so there is a big plume of TCE. I first noticed it in their 2022 report. And hey, look at those lines. They're like headed right at the parkway. Well, that's unfortunate because that orange line is the boundary line of the Superfund site, which means that apparently they ignore anything outside of that line. How that makes sense or is in any way protective, I don't know. Middle of that plume, 46,000 micrograms per liter of TCE. Just pulling there. So this year, they decided finally, hey, maybe if people are yelling about this, we should test on the other side of the parkway. Well, they sort of did. Now what I've done, I went and I have traced these out instead of having to do transparency because it's easier to see. Okay, so here we have locations of testing. The blue dots are the latest numbers they had in the 2022 report, which were from 2021. The orange dots are what they just did in May 2025. And that yellow dot is our test that came up positive at 2 micrograms per liter. And here we have those plume lines. Now, note, kind of hard to tell what that might do over there. Or is it? Because what you can see in the LiDAR is you can see that because this is a wetland, because moisture travels through soil and needs somewhere to go, there's culverts underneath. Here, culvert here, here. Can't really see the other side, but it's approximate. Here, here. Regular intervals all along. So here, they kind of line up with those. On my last walk when I went out, this spot has 2 openings here. Yeah, that goes right across to there. This one's interesting because this actually goes all the way back to somewhere over here for the power lines where they come out of the ground. But water was going up this way. here. And that's a bridge. So, lots of places for water to pass back and forth. Okay. But, water generally goes northward, right? Well, you zoom out. It's got a kind of a heat map for height. So, like, this is the highest area, and yeah, this is the lowest area. It is a bit higher over here, and of course, because it rains, we have things called drainage. So, say you get runoff from, oh, I don't know, where it's 46,000 here, which, by the way, when it was tested at 46,000, that was in the middle. They tried testing the depth on the well, and it only actually had water in it once, the middle of 3 tries. So the other times, where does it go? Oh, look, there's a ditch that's convenient to go down. Let's go down the ditch. Oh, look. Isn't that nice? And it goes downhill here too. All kinds of stuff here. Yep, that runs down there too. I mean, it gets extra rainy. I mean, there's a path here. It can go this way. Right here. This is basically a storm drain. So any water that gets in here, which can cross through multiple culverts there. Yeah, that goes right over here too. That's right. Square hole. So pretty much anywhere that's just this low. It's really swampy here. You're walking on liquid if you walk out here. This is all wet. It's this spot. All wet. How contamination could get over here? Well, it's not always going to be on the surface. Because see, when it's coming out here, pouring out like a fire hose, and that water was flooding up in here. It's all full of water now. It sits there and it soaks into the ground because TCE is heavier than water. So it goes under the water and into the dirt. And since we don't really know what kind of dirt's in there and it's been all shoved around, well, that could be spreading out. Who knows? Hey, look, it's in our basements. So it spreads far enough here, and look, we've got lots of ditches that it can go collect in. Over here. Yeah, this is all full of water for sure here. And there's a giant turtle that we have named Gamera. Big, big snapping turtle. They don't care too much about contamination. They're pretty hardy. Saw water going this way. This is the police firing range. It used to be a water treatment plant. Those tanks were pretty much right where they put the firing range. Before they had pools there, it appeared to just be shooting out over here. This has a pipe in it. I've seen, if you follow the path from the electrical lines, which you can see sometimes here. Yeah, their power lines are here. So that's actually a ditch. That's a ditch. You've got water basically just flowing down into the ditch. which comes right up to this berm. But guess what's on the other side of the berm? That's right. More marshy water. On this side, it is a ton of marshy water. Up here, we have a bunch of water here that's coming out of storm drains here from underneath the school and their field and everything to the south. So this has two routes. This is all of a marsh here. And that comes out here. And it comes out here. And then that flows down here, but like all of this super wet. The whole thing. You want mud boots if you go through here. All of these ditches, it's all wet. Yeah, and a lot of it's declared as wetland. So it takes a path going this way, and then it goes down in this drainage ditch and dumps out into the creek. The creek also floods. So these spots are also intermittently very wet. Another factor coming into this. So a few years ago, there was what turned out to be a water main break right about here, somewhere in there. They had to go dig a big ditch for this giant pipe that you could almost drive a car into. It was pretty neat. What you can see in the land formation here is that it looks like that was going on for quite a while. That was dumping out water for about, supposedly 20-something years. Like, there was a pretty waterfall here, and it made ruts. So this was all a swamp. And that swamp always had an oily sheen on it. And I always thought that it was because it was the parkway and it was car oil. And yeah, comes right out here, which connects right up to here. So when they fixed the pipe that was leaking fresh water out into here, I think it is entirely possible that once this dried up, that left a pressure vacuum. And that pressure vacuum allowed this to soak right back up. And look how close that is to apartments, houses. And that's dirt. It's getting soaked right up, coming out here. Here we have the numbers from 2021. And we can now compare them with what they picked up last month. And the thing that sticks out to me is that we've got all these measured 10, 15 feet, sample feet, 15 to 20 feet. They're getting readings like you pretty much expect from that. Then you look over here, got 5 to 10, 10 to 15. Nothing else is more than 5 to 10. And they did surface water and sediment out much closer, and yeah, it came up low because you're not supposed to find that stuff in surface water. But it still definitely showed up on this side. Another thing I'd like to point out, so in 2021, this spot here was listed at 230 micrograms per liter TCE. Spot they checked right next to it, 500 and 480. It's gone up. it's migrating this way. Another theory, because right, there could be multiple reasons, there could be alternate reasons. Another theory is in the reports they mentioned a contamination source that they have yet to locate. Maybe that's over here somewhere, maybe it's coming this way. That is another possibility. Either way, that's all pretty close to this spot where they want to build stuff. I am completely open to being wrong on this, but I do think that my concern is valid. They haven't looked over here, they've not given a report on the hydrology or the geology over in this area. They can't say that they know definitely that it hasn't gotten a distance over here into the Shorecliff neighborhood or up here where they want to build a building. As another note, this water treatment plant, for quite some time, decades, was our town's police headquarters. And while that was in operation, it has been told to us that several of the officers working there got rare brain cancers, and most of them died. Some of them had horrible lesions that they had that stopped when they stopped working in that building. It could be chemicals from the water treatment plant. It could be chemicals from Odenbach. It could be chemicals from the runoff from who knows what uphill from the storm drains. And one day, the storm drain behind my house, which empties like down here, actually goes more over into this. There's a creek. One day, that storm drain smelled so powerfully of bleach, it burned my nostrils. Don't know where that came from. It seemed a bit strong for somebody just pouring their own house bleach down the storm drain, which is who the hell does that? Either way, not cool. But yeah, there's potential that there's multiple sources doing this. This area is also a FEMA 1% flood zone, meaning flood damage does happen here. This fills up with water when the lake gets high because it's attached directly to Lake Ontario. And when that happens, that creek overflows. Not only does that creek overflow, but for what multiple people have seen, it flows south. What that means? Well, that takes all the crud and sediment, TCE, vinyl chloride, acetone, mercury, lead, all of that shoves it right up this way. I think it would be really nice if the DEC would actually come and take a better look. And I think it's really, really stupid to build something in the middle of this without checking.